Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 499, written by Loquos. Secrets of phasing into a vital scientist. I've had a few surgeries over the years. A C-section, my tonsils removed, corrective surgery to fix a bunion, and a few suspicious moles were removed by a plastic surgeon with local anesthesia. With all of these, I'd have the same reaction/experience coming out from those drugs, mainly feeling a little loopy or chatty, but otherwise like myself. However, about 3 to 4 years ago, I had the most unusual experience, and when I shared it with my husband, who was in my recovery room, it made the experience even more unusual. I was out of surgery after having my gallbladder removed, awake and lucid. The hospital staff had brought some light snacks to my room, and I'd asked my husband to read me some news while I ate. He obliged me, and I'm sitting happily, nomming on my Jell-O and crackers and sipping on my orange juice in the hospital bed, when all of a sudden this feeling of urgency overtakes me and I tell him, "I need to lay down now." I repeat this 3 times. Then this is where my story and his completely diverge. He said, I suddenly started convulsing and my eyes rolled up in my head. In a matter of seconds, the hospital staff rushed, reclined my bed, elevated my feet, and I came to like nothing had happened. For me, I lived an entirely different life in an entirely different reality where I was working at a lab in some sort of scientific capacity. In the real life, I'm a designer. My husband is a scientist. I was making some adjustments on a machine I was very familiar with in that life, but in this life I couldn't tell you what it did. It was massive though, had a panel about 12 feet long with lots of dials and buttons and switches. I'd been working on solving this problem for a while, though I couldn't tell you exactly what the problem was, only that in the moment I knew it'd been a lifetime of research and trials, and getting it right would help a lot of people, possibly even the whole world. My room was well lit, with large windows letting in a lot of natural light. The floor was made of a series of grates with panels you could pull up, presumably for maintenance on the vast bowels of the machinery. There was a doorway to my left and right. The room has a slight metallic smell, much like the old server rooms my dad used to take me to at DuPont. My lab coat was unbuttoned because it had been a long day of work. I had finally found the solution and was about to input the final pieces needed to complete my project. I knew lots of people were counting on me, but I also knew there were people who didn't want me to finish this project, as it would tip the scales of power. I had earlier gotten out of a meeting with the president of what country I couldn't tell you, only that places like the United States and China, etc., didn't exist there, and that didn't seem weird to me in the slightest, who had informed me they were adding some extra guard details to my building to ensure my project wasn't sabotaged, seeing as I was so close to completion. I didn't work for the government, but in some sort of mutual agreement with them. While there were people in other parts of the building, the room I was in was limited access, and only a select group of people I trusted were allowed to enter. I just signed off on some work one of those trusted people had come in to have me review, and they had just left the room. I was reflected on how nice it would be to finally get a little vacation time, a rest from all this work, and spend it with my husband and family. Side note, in this world, my husband was the same person as the one in the real world, but he stayed home and took care of the family. And our family was different in that world. 2 kids, when I actually have 1. I was just about to do the final input and initiate the results, when all of a sudden, one of the grates in the floor opened up and pulled me down into the blackness by my feet. And I came to a start and saw all the people around me and asked what was going on, and my husband explained what happened, and when I asked how long I'd been out, he looked at me oddly and then told me it was only a few seconds. It took me a while to shake this horrible feeling that I had to get back there, where or whenever that was, to finish my work because so many people were depending on me, and no one else knew how to work the machine except for me. I've learned from some nurse friends that people can sometimes have this odd physical reaction to certain types of anesthesia when coming out of it, but no one's ever heard of the weird mental, which felt very physical, experience I had in those few seconds. I sometimes get the odd feeling that that was the real world, and what I'm experiencing now is a delusion. And ever since then, I occasionally experience those weird phantom noises just as I'm drifting off to sleep. But instead of bangs or other startling noises, exploding head syndrome, mine are odd electronic beeps and chirps. Nothing in our house makes these noises, which gives me flashbacks of that place I was doing important things in. Case notes, file number 499. I'm reminded of a few episodes of Star Trek, but the most important one, and probably the best TV episode made in our species' history, is called Inner Light. Spoiler warning, but if you haven't seen it, go watch it ASAP. A brief review. Picard is flashed by a foreign alien object, which instantly shifts his conscious perspective into an alien planet of unknown location. His memories are intact. He knows he doesn't belong there, but nothing happens. No one comes to his aid, no way to leave the planet. As the months fade into years, he adapts and learns to live in his new home, forming bonds and memories there, even building his own family. He lives a lifetime learning of these people, how they live, their culture. And then, at the end, when they launch a probe, he wakes up. In the real world, where minutes passed, it turns out that species had died off, and they knew it would happen. They couldn't stop it. So they created a probe to send out into the great darkness in the hopes another species would encounter it and learn of who they were. A true lifetime lived in but a brilliant flash of light. Can you imagine that? Can you process how disjointed and disconnected you'd be upon your return? To everyone else around you, minutes passed, but for you it was 30 million minutes. It would take months, if not years, to return to a sense of belonging after an experience of that nature. Now, to your glitch, while not as extreme, thinking of just how seeing this episode made me feel, well, you described that sense of needing to go back, that what you were doing was critical to that reality survival. I don't know if it was real, a quantum crossover event to a parallel universe, or just your own mind conjuring hours in mere seconds in reality as a sort of defense mechanism, as you did say that you were spazzing out in real life. But whatever it was, I can understand the sensation you had in returning to the real world. Maybe this isn't the real world. Case file number 500, written by Lollybot. Secrets of the Bag with Extra-Dimensional Pockets. A couple weeks ago, while at my boyfriend's house, I took my birth control from my bag, swallowed one, and promptly put it back. I also remembered my wallet being in the same spot. The next day, as the time to take my birth control arrived, I went to look in my bag to take it, but as you can probably already guess, it simply wasn't there. I took everything out of my bag twice, looked through, and nothing. And by look through, I don't mean I merely thought it was empty and left it alone. I fingered that crap. I took that freaking bag out to dinner and gave it the best plowing it would ever have in its godforsaken life. I searched through every fold and pocket, and even shook it around while nothing was inside to make sure there wasn't any rattling or weight. It was around that time when I also noticed my wallet was missing. My wallet is pretty thick and heavy, so there was no possible way I couldn't have spotted it. For the life of me, I just couldn't feel nervous at first though, because it didn't feel like I had lost it. It was so freaking bizarre. It felt like I still knew where it was, but it simply wasn't there for the moment. Me and my boyfriend thought maybe someone stole my wallet and the birth control, thinking they were drugs. I ordered a new debit card, yada yada, and for the next couple of weeks I still had regularly used the bag since it was my favorite. I remember saying to my boyfriend, if they randomly appear there again, I'm gonna believe in hell and that God has it out for me. Last night, while very, very lightly searching for some lip gloss, guess what the hell just showed up? Both my birth control and my wallet. Same freaking time, in a large pocket I know for 1,000,000% sure I had checked dozens of times. Oh my god, I guess I am going to freaking hell. Bonus file, written by Saucity, the eternal echo of suffering. I adore the couple that live next door. A duplex, our houses are connected. And over the last few years, I could hear the poor guy coughing or heaving from my bathroom all the time. Our bathrooms must be next to each other. He was very ill, I knew it was him, and always felt bad hearing someone's private bathroom suffering. Never told them this, no way. He passed away a few months ago, but occasionally I can still hear him. She still lives there, and we talk. There's no other male that lives with his widow or visits. It's 100% her, and is the identical sound I grew accustomed to all these years. When someone is heaving, you sort of hear their voice, I guess, and this is not just a male, this is his voice. I wouldn't dare tell her I can hear sounds from their bathroom, and or that I believe I can hear him, and that it sounds like the suffering and coughing and heaving I've heard for years. I'm sure there's a rational explanation. I don't know what I believe, but I don't like the thought of him still suffering. Anyway, I miss him. He was such a treasure. I tried to check up on her and help her often. I miss you, BR. Please rest in peace. You are free from suffering now.